Yes, it's to make people remember to wear one where I live. So,
Oh, okay. Interesting. So I barely leave my house, so I don't know anything about that.
so how
Eh,
are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Good, good.
Oh, the name on my Zoom says my son's name because he's the one who usually uses Zoom. I use Google. I use
Yes,
Google Hangout.
there we
Ah,
go.
cool.
Well, I was looking at the list of your biography. It's very extensive. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into acting and what made you start, for instance?
I I've been acting since I was 12,
Oh
and I've
my.
yes, and I got into acting um, quite by accident. I started out as a model when I was about 12 years old, 12 or 13. My sister used to model for Blanche McDonald, and I went with my mother to pick her up one day from a session or something, and the owner of the agency walked by me sitting in the waiting area, and she stopped and she said, "Are you one of ours?" And I said, "I don't know what you mean." And she said, "Oh, well, I think you should be." And next thing I know, my mother's in her office, and I'm signing the contract to start modeling for them. And from there, I did a bunch of commercials, did a ton of fashion shows, and it was actually at a fashion show that a casting director came up to me after the show and asked me if I'd done any acting and if it was something I'd be interested in. And I thought, that she was just some older lady hitting on a teenage boy, and no, it turns out she was legit. And she brought me into audition for the pilot for TV series 21 Jump Street.
Oh my. Okay.
And it's one of the rare times in my career that I actually got booked in the room.
Yes. What
Yeah,
are
so
some of your favorite memories from that show and being on it?
um, working with Reginald T. Dorsey, Peter DeLuise, who I worked with again later on. I think Peter directed me on Stargate, and I think he directed me on Andromeda, and I think I worked with him also on another show called Jeremiah. But the most interesting thing about working on Jump Street was the director of the pilot, Kim Manners, who kind of took me under his wing and gave me a lot of, I was really green and, haven't done, a couple of smaller parts before, but this was like a guest star on a pilot for a show. And we shot for about 10 days with a different actor. And then they did some testing and what have you, and they didn't like the lead that they had, so they replaced him with Johnny Depp. And then we reshot for another 10 days. So that turned out to be an awful lot of fun. And I met some
Yeah.
really cool people and discovered that I really enjoyed this acting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were on Andromeda and Stargate. What
Yes.
are your favorite things from being on those two shows, and what were the differences between them as a storyline and as an actor in two different sci-fi shows?
Um, of the two, I liked Andromeda the most. Andromeda was again another one of those rare occasions in an actor's career where you go in for an audition, you've done all the prep work, and I go into the room and I did the read, and the director just kept looking at me and looking at me, and he goes, "So what are you doing for the next 7 days?" And I said, "I don't know. What am I doing for the next 7 days?" He goes, "Working with me." So it's the second time in my career that I was booked in the room right after the
Yeah.
audition. Yeah. And there was a lot of fun. And again, career kind of repeats itself because I just finished doing a movie with Kevin and Sam Sorbo, and Kevin was the star of Andromeda, and I auditioned for him online. I put an audition on tape, and booked that one, and I played Reverend Reese on Miracle in East Texas. And Kevin was the star and the producer and the director, along with his wife Sam, who was also on Andromeda. So again, history keeps repeating itself. Interesting thing about Stargate, though, is that I got to work with Richard Dean Anderson on the Stargate episode, and but I'd worked with Richard Dean Anderson for a number of years on his early work on MacGyver. So we keep
Yeah.
cycling back to the same people keep working, right?
Yes. Did you enjoy MacGyver as an actor working on the set of that production?
Absolutely. That was actually a lot of fun. I met some really great people, the writers, the producers. Um, Everybody was always so nice. And it was only supposed to be a one off for me, playing Breeze on MacGyver. Supposed to be a one off that turned into um, 4, 5, 6 episodes over 3 years, playing the same character. The writer of the show, after my first episode of there, had decided that he really liked the character, and I'd enjoyed. I didn't even realize, I sat with him at lunchtime in craft services one day, and we were talking about various things, and then the next time I was on set, he goes, it was after we had a talk at lunch, and he goes, I just thought you were so engaging. I thought I want to bring this character back some more. And so it was kind of fun. And I got to meet a very good friend of mine on that show. He was just starting out, much like I was. And he since then blown up and won an Academy Award. And that would be Cuba Gooding Jr. So we played best friends. He was the good kid. I was the bad kid. He was trying to get me straight. He's the one who got me involved in the story arc there. They would do every season. They do a couple of episodes about the Challenger Boys and Girls Club, and
Yeah.
and that's how. So I got to work with Richard Dean and Dana L. Carr, and Breeze would come back, and he was a gang leader, and he was a delinquent, and then he got involved in the Challenger Club, and then he was a volunteer at the Challenger Club, and of course he'd always get himself into trouble, and MacGyver would come and help him out. But lots and lots of fun.
Okay. I think it'd be interesting to be on the same show in reoccurring roles over a period of years so you get to see how it develops.
Yes, it was actually always fun to get the script to see where Breeze was going next.
Yeah.
And of course, for myself, I think I started playing Breeze who was a teenager, but I was not a teenager. I was in my 20s, I believe, playing a 17-year-old, and trying to maintain the character of a 17-year-old when you're actually in your 20s. And yeah,
Yeah.
and but that show taught me a lot about acting, and it taught me a lot about my process and myself. And I really, Breeze is one of those characters that will stay with me probably for the rest of my life because he was quite dear to me, and his story arc was quite fascinating me, from going from being a hard drug dealing bad kid to being a kid who's helping out and volunteering in the center. And one of my favorite episodes of that was the Madonna, which was the Christmas episode, where he really, really comes around, and he's like such a good spiritual kid. And it's like such an arc from being a street thug to being a kid who's spiritual and understands the meaning of Christmas and all. It was very well written. One of my favorite pieces of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned The Miracle in East Texas. I'm looking forward to watching that movie. I saw a preview for it recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did you get involved in that story? Was it through your knowing Kevin Sorbo? I saw that it was, yeah.
Not at all. Not at all, actually. Um, I hadn't seen Kevin or interacted with him in years. And so my agent had sent me the script, and they'd asked me to put it on tape, the audition, which I did. And I sent it in. And actually, it's very rare that you get a script and you read it and the character speaks to you right away. I knew how he walked, I knew how he talked, the voice in my head, it just came. And so I put it on tape, and thought, well, this will be fun if I get it. And I wonder if Kevin will actually even remember me. And then the interesting thing is, because they were casting worldwide, a buddy of mine who was an actor that I knew from back in Vancouver had moved and met a girl and had moved to the UK. And I found out I got the part from him before my agent told me, because he pinged me on Messenger and said, "Hey, congratulations on booking Miracle in East Texas." He goes, "I read for Reverend Reese." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You live in the UK?" And he goes, "Yeah, I put it on tape." I said, "But it's filming in my backyard." And he goes, "Yeah, but they were casting worldwide, and I put it on tape." And he goes, "And I see that you," and he goes, "My manager told me that I didn't get the part, but and I asked, well, who did they book? They booked somebody out of Calgary named Charles Payne." He goes, "I know." He says, "So I'm like, I had to let you know." And I'm like, my agent hasn't told me yet. So I, of course, got off, reached out to my, and
Yeah.
she's like, oh, she goes, oh, I hadn't told you because I was still negotiating. But yeah, you booked the
Yes.
part. And it was when I got on set, and such lovely people. Sam Sorbo, who's Kevin's wife, they, got on set, and she was like, we saw your audition tape and thought we found our Reverend Reese. And then she goes, and then I said, we've worked together before. And she's like, when I told her, she goes, oh my God, I was wondering about that. She goes, oh, Kevin's going to be so excited. They didn't hire me because they'd worked with me before, but we had so much fun on that show. Just
Yes.
absolute fun.
And then you were in Life as We Know It and also the Santa Claus 2, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, and what are your memories from there? And also, I saw you were in Heartland as well.
hmm I have done a lot of work. I think if I actually sat down and added up every commercial, theater, film, or television that I've done, I probably got about 140 credits. Um, Acting is just it's that there's an old saying that find something you gladly do for free, get yourself well trained in it, and then get somebody to pay you to do it. For me, performing is that, and
Yeah.
and I consider myself a journeyman actor. And what I mean by that is I really don't care if it's one line, two lines, no lines. If you want me to be on a movie set, I'm coming. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm coming. I have no ego about, as long as we're blessed as actors because we get to tell stories. And since man could communicate and sit around a fire, storytelling it's in our makeup, right? And the storytellers are the people who carry on, who keep on our mythologies, who keep our cultural structure, our mores, and pass them along. So the fact that I get to be part of that is a joy. And so, you
Yeah.
know, and like I said, every time I get an opportunity to be on a movie set, I'm the happiest man on set. And I've had people say to me, "Why are you so happy when you're on set?" I'm like, "Because I'm an actor on a movie set. Why wouldn't I be happy?"
Yeah. And then you also do stand-up comedy as well as inspirational talk. Is
That
that
is correct. All things that feed my need to create and perform. And I got into stand-up comedy. There's an interesting story. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 20 plus years now. And some buddies of mine went back in Vancouver, where I lived for a long time before I moved to Calgary 15 years ago. We'd go to a comedy club on Wednesday nights after work, and it would open mic night. We go have some beer and chicken wings, and catch up with each other, and just being guys, boys being boys. But after numerous weeks of doing this, we show up one Wednesday night, and the MC gets on stage and he's introducing the acts, and he says, "Coming to the stage next, I don't know much about this gentleman. His friends tell me he's very funny. Please welcome Charles Payne." And I was like, "There's somebody else in the room named Charles Payne," and my buddies are practically on the floor, killing themselves laughing. And they're like, "Dude, that's you." And the MC's like, "Charles Payne, are you coming? Or do we move on?" And then they're like, I'm like, "What do I do? What do I do?" They go up and tell that story you told us on the drive down. So I went on stage, and I've been dying to do comedy. That's why we went pretty much every week. We were there for open mic night to watch the show. And I went on stage and I think I didn't do a full 5 minutes. I think I might have done 3.5 minutes telling stories, but people laughed. And I got off the stage, and that high that you get from that instant feedback and the fact that you made people laugh, that I was like, oh, I've got to do more of this. So I started going back to open mic nights, but now I would go and sign up myself and do it. And then I went and took a comedy writing course, and I've been doing it ever since. Been touring, headline all over the place, and that led to my lover performing, and then the inspirational, motivational speaking thing, kind of similar thing as every actor, most actors will deny this, but you have a day job, and the company that I work for would send us to these talks, and they'd bring in the same guy all the time, and and I'd sit in the room, and half the time I wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying. I was watching what he was doing, and I thought, I could do that. So I boldly called him up one day and said, hey, I'd like to take you for lunch. I want to understand. I want to pick your brain. And I met with him and said, I like what you do, and I think I could do what you do. And he looked at me and he says, Charles, you're probably better qualified to do what I do than I am. He goes, because you're a comedian, you're an actor, you've got a background in psychology, you've got a background in business. You could do this. And so he kind of took me under his wing and kind of guided me and gave me some pointers, and I started, doing it. And then one of the very first ones that I did, I got help actually from my younger sister, is a lawyer, and she was the firm that she was working at was the owner wanted to bring someone in to give a motivational talk about being present in the room and being able to bring in more clients and network in. And she said, could you do it? And so I went and met with the owner, and I said, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk to you about? And then I went home and wrote it. And showed up and gave my first presentation. Not really, just based on what my mentor, Ross Buchanan, who was the person who I called him up and said, hey, I want to learn what you do. He kind of taught me some stuff. And so I kind of wrote a speech and a presentation, and I went and gave a talk at the law firm, and it went over really, really well. And again, I was like, oh, you might actually be able to do this. And so, and having taken that, let me circle back, having taken that writing course has been fantastic for me, because that led to me being able to write my own presentations, to write my own comedies, and also to write in scripts. So
yeah. And that's how you got into script writing then too?
That's exactly right. Again, I'm always in looking for outlets for my creativity. I need to, so yes, storytelling, it all comes back to storytelling. Film and television doesn't exist without the writers. I mean, and as an actor, you have to have a lot of respect for the people who put the words on the paper that you then take off the paper and bring to life. And to be able to do both, to be able to write a story and then have it produced, fantastic.
Yeah. So what are some of your upcoming projects that you're working
on? Right now, I actually have a short film called Choice that's in pre-production. Some people that I worked with previously on the Parent Council, one of the ladies on that was the director of the Parent Council, which I co-wrote, my good friend Patrick Creary, who's also an actor that lives in Toronto now, but he's from Vancouver, much like I am. Patrick actually challenged me to write this script, and he just we were going to enter it into a short film competition, which didn't actually materialize, but there was some parameters and boundaries within that script. So he said that, I challenge you to write it. You literally have 48 hours to write the script. And I did. And then I sent it off to him and to Nadine, who directed the Parent Council, and said, here's what I came up with. And they both went, whoa, okay, we have to produce this. So I didn't want to act in it. So I'm actually co-producing it, and Nadine's going to direct it, and it's in pre-production right now, except with the current situation, it probably won't go into production until this all goes away. So.
Yes. Do you have a website for the film and the project?
I have my own website, which is charlespayne.ca. Then there is a website for the Parent Council, and there will be a website coming soon for Choices, but we haven't actually loaded it up yet. It's
wonderful. I'll include the links to those websites on the by the video, so people can go see that. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you just Google Charles Andrew Payne. I go by Charles Andrew Payne. And interesting story in that for the longest while it was just Charles Payne, until one day again one of my acting friends sent me a text and said, dude, you need to go check your IMDb page. And I was like, why? He goes, just check it and then call me back. So I went and checked, and there's another Charles Payne who used to be a commentator for a network television in the US, and he'd done some stuff, been accused of doing some stuff that was not necessarily good.
Oh,
Kind of like the Me Too thing, but
yeah,
all the online stories about him, because we shared the same name, had been added as links on my IMDb page. Then if you did a Google search for
yeah,
Charles Payne, his stuff came up. So I was like, oh, so that's why I switched over to Charles Andrew Payne, just to differentiate. And then I had to do a lot of behind the
yeah,
scenes work to get all the links taken off that were being pointed
yeah,
to me.
yeah. It's amazing how many people have the same name when you look at
Hmm.
it. So,
Yes, yes. If you've never Googled yourself, I highly
yep.
recommend that you do so.
I do it every few weeks.
Yes. Well, yes. If you become a bit of a public figure, I cringe at that. But yes, I ever since then I do it every couple months as well, just to see what's being linked to my name.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you so much for this interview. We're going to share it with the fans here in a couple of days, and
excellent.
we'll include all your links. And thank you so much. It was
Oh
a
no,
great
you're very
joy.
welcome. Thank you for including me. All right.
You have
Take
a
care.
great day. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.